We're trying to talk to mayoral candidates to hear their answers on some of the different issues impacting Black people around the city of Boston. Um, this particular event is sponsored by different organizations such as Cotton Square Neighborhood Development Corporation, the Male Engagement Network, Union Minority Neighborhoods, List Boston. We have ABCD Mattapan. We also have Keeping Cotton Square Affordable, New Estra CDC, and there's more. We'll Sister Circle, a whole bunch of great folks that we'll list out at the end as well.
So there's hundreds of programs that support moms and children. I was wondering, are you willing to support programs that are aimed at supporting fathers and fatherhood engagement?
So, I think a lot of ways my theme throughout is going to be we follow the lead of community members. And I know, James, you and I have talked about a bunch of ways that the city should be leaning in more here. I know there are programs and organizations happening in all different parts of our city. So we can play a role in supporting that, in providing a convening space wherever, just to make sure that all the resources are on the same page. And then to go beyond that, because being a parent, being especially a working mom or father, is about juggling the chaos that comes of trying to balance everything. And so, of course, you need support kind of emotionally, and to think about parenting and how so many of the programs are running. But a lot of times what I hear from the programs when I visited is we need T-passes, right? We need gift card. We need to support the ways in which we can take down barriers for fathers and for mothers, but speaking specifically in this question, for parents and family and caregivers and guardians to be able to get past the barriers that are there. There is an extra burden. The cost of being poor, right, means you're traveling farther distances for more money, to fill out more forms around keeping housing and all that. And so one big initiative that I'm pushing, which I think hopefully we'll touch on a lot of pieces of this, but hopefully will just be a relief of burden on a lot of fathers, is what we're calling a family core. And so, we've put forward the idea about a children's cabinet where through our school system, we touch so many families, and those families have a really wide range of needs and dreams and goals. And we're often too late when it comes to reaching our families when they need something outside the school system, right? So many stories of students whose parents knew, almost lost their home because of a utility payment that was late or rent that was too late, when we had help for them in other parts of city government. But we just know that they started experiencing homelessness through the school system, because now we have to figure out the transportation to connect them from the emergency shelter back to their schools and this and that, when we should have known about that ahead of time. And so to have a cabinet that is coordinating any agency with services to offer young people and their families and providing a one-stop shop. My goal is that each young person, from the moment they enter BPS, and we're going to start earlier with early education, all the way through graduation, has a single point of contact for whatever they need in their households and in their families. That could be rent assistance. It could be food security. It could be mental health supports for a family member, a summer camp, or job options for a sibling. And giving parents just one place where they can get support on anything that the city has to offer should go hand in hand with, of course, supporting the community-based organizations already doing such incredible work.
Yes, and it's critical. The provider, the mental health provider I mentioned earlier, is called Father's Uplift. And it's just one provider in my current district that is doing mental health work. but uses this lens of really going after and targeting fathers and working with fathers, including fathers that are returning from incarceration. And so help them get funding. But the best thing about that program is the model that they use. It is very targeted. It is very specific. And they have probably been wanting to expand for some time, and they will continue to. But there are other organizations that do that type of work that struggle to find resources, that need technical assistance to help apply for some of these grants that come to the city, some of the grants at the state and federal level. The city of Boston can support all of those efforts, and it is critical. And one thing I don't often talk about is, for a period of time, I lived with a single father who was formerly incarcerated. And there was often a struggle to find supports. There was often a struggle to find various programs to address the things that he had to grapple with, including his own trauma. And so if we're going to break cycles and generational cycles of sort of poverty, trauma, inequity, we're going to have to be targeted. And that is absolutely one way to do it, is through fathers. And I'll just add one layer. It's also lifting up fathers who are doing remarkable things. You know, I often have folks who want to try to attach some sense of shame to my story. And I say, my life is about breaking generational cycles of criminalization and recognizing the humanity in folks who make different choices, but who also, at the end of the day, including my own father, who work really hard to make a difference so their child can have a different life outcome in the future. And so do we celebrate that? Probably not enough. And so there are clearly programs and people that do that work, but what does it mean for the city of Boston to also do the same and not to just talk about these issues through a deficit lens?
Yes, absolutely. We need to continue to support our women and children. There's no question about it, but we need to do exactly what you just said, James, which is to make sure that we've got programs that support fathers and support brothers out there. You know, I'm proud to have worked with the Office of Women Advancement in the city of Boston, and that's super important. I'd love to work with the Office of Father Advancement or Men Advancement. And that's why I'm proposing that we have an office that works particularly with Black and brown men and boys in the city of Boston. It's something that we need. We need some intentionality around it. And the only way to do it is to put some money behind it, some staffing behind it, and make sure that you have a point person at the city of Boston and a team there that is working on it and that has some money. Right. That's the important thing, that has some resources behind it and in fact can impact and partner with those out there who are doing the work.
Thank you.
The simple answer to that question is yes. But, you know, back to Yvette's question around children and families and community, it is about, you know, when we think about the whole child, the whole family, the whole community, that men and boys have to play the leading role in which we need them to play in these pieces. And certainly we'll encourage and work towards that every single day, making sure that men in our communities have access to the support they need. You know, when we think about healthcare, especially when we think about mental health, I've done a lot of my focus on the city council has been around improving access to mental health. I will say we haven't focused in a way that we should on making sure that men have access to the mental health care that they need. We talk in sort of my space is a lot about our young people. And over this last year, we've talked more about the work that we need to do to help our elders access appropriate mental health services because of the implications of isolation and illness. But our men need access to improved mental health care services. And we think, you know, back to I think the initial question around Black men in reentry and returning and those that are formerly incarcerated, what an important role mental health plays in that effort. But what an important role mental health plays across the spectrum for all men. I also think related a little bit, you know, as a female, as a woman, as an elected official, and as hopefully the next mayor of this city, it's often said, oh, look at, you know, these women of power, what wonderful role models they are for young women coming up. And I appreciate that and certainly want to fulfill that role that I play for young women. But women can also play. I have 4 teenage sons. We should also be playing that same role for the young men in our lives, that they see women in leadership roles, but that we're also allied with strong men, that we are creating space for men to play leadership roles. And, I've made a couple of sort of these campaign promises, things I will do in my first 100 days as mayor, but something that I need to do, not just in my first 100 days, but in the immediate period of transition, which will start post-preliminary leading into the final election, which is November 2nd, is through that transition period, building a cabinet that is reflective of the diversity of our city. Certainly reflective of our racial diversity and our ethnic diversity and our religious diversity of this city, things that are important to me personally, but also that we are creating space for men to lead in ways, and I also want to do this for women. I also, when I think about our BIPOC community, when I think about our LGBTQ community, that we are creating space for individuals to lead in spaces that they aren't sort of tokenized in. So Black men should play leadership roles in topics that aren't specific to Black men. Black men can lead in conversations around community health. Black men can lead in conversations around developing, food security networks. And I think too often we're saying, well, only a certain type of person can lead on particular conversations or, be thought leaders in particular spaces. But that can't be the case. But, so for me, it's a little bit of an aside, but want to make that